Welcome to the Hazard Class Podcast. This is the podcast where I ask my stupid questions to some of the smartest people in and around the world of emergency services. My guest this week has spent 20 years working for the Anoka County Sheriff's Office in Minnesota. He was an FTO for 6 years, a former mobile field force member, and spent 2 years as an apprehension deputy. He was involved in a harrowing event in Sturgis, South Dakota, where while off duty, he commandeered a firearm and came to the aid of a South Dakota state trooper in a gunfight. He was subsequently awarded the 2024 Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association Police Officer of the Year, along with the 2024 Minnesota 100 Club Law Enforcement Officer of the Year. He has earned 2 Medals of Valor and a Meritorious Service Award from the state of South Dakota. We'll hear his story today. It's my pleasure to chat with Tanner Shipman. There he is. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, man. Good. There's one thing I failed to mention in the intro is that you are a recent Jiu-Jitsu champion. And I think that it's important for the people to know that.
Yeah. And I'm a white belt in the geriatric division, I'd say. I'm in the Masters 4 class. So, I just got back from the Jiu-Jitsu Con novice tournament. There was a Masters tournament going also, which other guys from our gym competed in. But yeah, a lot of fun. It's nice to see the hard work pay off.
Yeah. So what encompasses Masters then? That's a age bracket, or what is that?
Yeah, that's the age bracket you go into, and I've only been doing it since November, so I'm not super familiar with all the dynamics behind it, but I know that there's like youth, adult, and then masters, and I'm not sure the age when you first become in that masters division.
Okay.
So there's a masters 1 through 6 or maybe 7, something like that. It's a string. So I'm 48, so I'm still in the masters 4. If anybody out there in the jiu-jitsu world, they can probably wrap their head around that.
Yeah. I don't have a wrap around it, but I do think it was important to mention your recent victory. So as we open up the show, it's tradition around here that we open it up with a stupid question, usually off our wheel of stupid questions, which is just a reminder that asking questions is good. Even if they're stupid, if you point them at the right people, you can still get some pretty good answers. So we'll pop into that. I got a question for you, and I'm excited to hear your answer. Here we go. Okay. And so as the last 2 episodes have been, I'm not using the wheel right now because it's in a rebuilding phase because I'm outfitting it with new stupid questions. But I did come up with this, right? The vast majority of the podcast audience just listens. They don't see. So they don't get to see what you look like. And so I want to give them a visual. As they hear the story today, if you were a Hollywood director, who would you cast to play you in the story of your life?
Oh, boy. Probably Alan Richardson, I believe is his name, Reacher.
Okay. Yeah. It looks just like you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not as in shape, I would say, as him, but I think structurally, we're pretty similar in height and size.
Yeah. Yep, there you go. And I think that adds a really good visual element to the story. But yeah, okay. So, and he's great too. That show's great.
Yeah, that question was posed to me after my incident that had happened. And somebody had made the comment that if he was portraying me, that my wife would want to be herself and in that. So that was a pretty good comeback on her.
That's really good.
If that's her celebrity crush, then that's great.
That's fair enough. I think I would concede to that one. All right. So let's get into it. The real deal. So 20 years with the Anoka County Sheriff's Office. Where are you from? why law enforcement?
Well, I was born and raised in Anoka County in a town called Lino Lakes. Grew up there, went to Forest Lake High School, started wrestling when I was like first grade up until like 19, 20 years old. Didn't wrestle in college, but wrestled independently in freestyle and Greco. And went to, I think it was my senior year, we took a tour of the Hennepin County Jail in Minneapolis. And right then and there, something clicked and I wanted to get into law enforcement and go after the bad guys. So,
any history of people in like first responders or anything like that in the family?
Well, my great grandpa Flanagan, it was kind of one of those things back in the day. He's from Willow River, Minnesota. And the story goes in my family that, he was, a big Irishman and is one of those guys that if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing. So he ended up being deputized up there because he was, back is like the Great Depression where people were starving. And so he was poaching deer and trying to provide for his family. But he's pretty good at what he did and getting away. He was fast. And so I guess the sheriff deputized him and I don't know how long of a stint that happened. I don't think it was very long, but that's the short of it.
Yeah. And so you have that experience, and then what entails then becoming a police officer? You have, in Minnesota, you have to have a 4-year degree. Is that right?
2-year degree.
2-year degree. Okay.
And I believe this is still true. Like if you're in the military service, there is a lateral process for that.
Okay.
You still have to take the post exam and there's other requirements, but and there's some agencies within Minnesota that do require a 4-year degree.
Okay. So you decide you want to do this, then what's your pathway there?
It was a little rough, actually. I ended up going to Alexandria Tech for 2 years, but I ended up not finishing. Kind of took advantage of my youth and my freedom. And I tried to get back in for a 3rd year, and it was a 2-year program, and they weren't having.
It's so funny that you're saying that, because people that listen to the podcast know that I have the same story. I went to Hennepin Tech for 2.5 years for a 3-year degree, and I never got a degree either. So it's really funny that we have a similar story there. I got great grades. I just didn't take the right classes. Yeah.
My grades and my attendance are kind of what pushed me out of there, or they didn't allow me to come back for a 3rd year. But yeah, I moved back home, moved in with some buddies right around St. Thomas, got a job hauling furniture and bouncing at a couple bars. Turned out that wasn't my path or how I wanted to proceed, and got back into school, went back to Century College and completed my degree, got my certificate through Metro State's Center for Criminal Justice and Law Enforcement. And that was in like 2003, I think. And then I ended up getting my job with Anoka County August 2005.
Okay. And so what's that like? When you first come in, is there kind of a hierarchy and you're getting some crappy detail, or how, like I know how it works in the fire service side, but how does it work in the law enforcement side? You're this new boot. Where do you get sent to? How do they haze you? I suppose is the correct answer.
Yeah, well, you go into a field training program, and there's 4 phases to it. The first phase is real introductory, more like a glorified ride along. You get into the second phase, and you're more, involved in the calls and getting information and starting to write reports. Third phase, you're doing most of the work. Still there's some guidance, but when you get in that phase 4, that's the shadow phase where your FTO is in plain clothes, and they are no help to you. And so you're operating like you're on solo patrol. Obviously, if a situation presents itself where there's officer safety or safety to the public that needs to be addressed, the FTO can step in and assist. But once you're done with field training, and depending what shifts the FTOs work, like I did a day shift, a night shift, and like a day power shift when I was in my training. Once I was off, I was straight to night shift, and you're there, you're a low man on the totem pole, so you gotta wait your years to get into a different hours. So I was on a dog watch for a little bit.
So how, just for the sake of people that aren't familiar with the area, how big is Anoka County?
Man, I believe it's almost 700 square miles.
Oh, wow.
I have to double check that, but it runs like north-south from, if anybody knows where Columbia Heights is, which is like 37th and Central Avenue. So it butts up against Minneapolis, and it goes all the way up to 245th, Highway 65, butts up against Isanti County. Then east to west, you have Sherburne on the west, Washington County, and Chisago County to the east.
So how many officers are working at a given time, or deputies, I guess it would be? Is that derogatory? The officer deputy interchange, is that seen controversially?
To some, it may be. I never make the correction. But if somebody's like, "What do you do?" I'll say I'm a deputy with Anoka County. So, but yeah, I'm real flexible.
Is there any difference in the role? Like, that might be a really stupid question, but I'm willing to ask it. It's like, if someone says I'm a sheriff's deputy, is that person's actual job different than a police officer?
Well, yeah, there are some differences between like a municipality police and a sheriff's office as far as responsibilities go. In Anoka County, and probably every county in the state, we're in charge of the jail. So we have detention deputies work in our jail. We have the bailiffs work the courthouse. For a while in our county, there was only 2 SWAT teams, but now, which was the sheriff's office and then Anoka PD. But now we have a full integration of officers from our whole county that are part of our SWAT team now. But we do civil service, like serving papers. I'm not sure if the police departments have people that do that, but generally all that runs through the sheriff's office. So
then at a given time, how many deputies are working?
On our patrol side of it, I'm, depending on the part of the day, it's probably about 20 to 25.
Okay.
Yeah. So in Anoka County, we have contracts with 8 different cities. So like the city I work in is Ham Lake, and total there's 6 deputies that work that city. But we have separate rotations. So there's rotation 1 and 2, and there's 3 deputies on each side of that. So
each, you're broken into those areas. You're not working all across Anoka County. You're working just in that one city inside of the county, generally.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then we have countywide cars that are rovers, so they'll work the smaller cities or townships that don't have coverage, 24 hours a day. So there's always deputies around for service.
Is that the coveted position, or is that the low man on the totem pole, that rover guy?
No, on day shift we have senior guys that run it.
Okay.
But then our canines are also countywide cars.
Oh, okay. So being in law enforcement, 20 years now, obviously there's been seemingly a pretty large shift in the way law enforcement is viewed and, administered. What has been your experience in that shift in the last 20 years? Like, how is it different to you? In what ways is it better? In what ways is it more challenging?
Well, to start out, I think that the candidate pool is an important place to start. When I was when I was applying in like 2002, 2003, there was about 400 to 500 people applying for 3 spots. And so if you were able to land a job back then, it was like winning the lottery because of there's a lot of competition. I'd say in right around 2014 would probably be the kind of the downfall of people wanting to get in law enforcement. And that was the start, like the Ferguson riots with Michael Brown.
Oh, yeah.
And then it just kind of depleted from there. We weren't seeing the numbers come in, or quality candidates, I should say.
And so then how has it actually changed policing on the streets? Like that shift?
Well, I think an administrator would probably that'd be a better question for them as far as, complaints coming in or people, showing their gratitude. The introduction of body cams, I would say, in my opinion, was probably the best thing that could have happened because, well, it keeps everybody honest, but then the complaints against officers being rude or the excessive use of force, and speaking to my command staff, went down significantly because once people find out the body cam is going to be reviewed and they didn't know that there's a body cam, they'll either hang up, they'll just be like, never want to file a complaint anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, it seemingly only serves good, right? Because it holds the people that are doing the wrong thing accountable for doing the wrong thing, and it proves that the people doing the right thing are doing the right thing too. I think one of the more problematic things that we've seen, especially more recently, is when they clip it, right? They take the however long footage and then take out 15 seconds of it and use it to write a narrative that doesn't tell necessarily the whole story. And that has been detrimental, I believe. I mean, I would imagine you would agree with that, but so often you watch the whole film and you go, whoa, that's a whole different story than what I might have been told.
Yeah. You'll see stuff on social media, things that you've been personally involved in, or, you have a friend that was, and they're just showing the clips. They don't, it's never the beginning.
What do you think is a misconception that the general public has about policing that is hard to convey?
Man, that's a really good question. The job is a lot harder than people realize because everybody's got kind of a, it's easy to sit in the couch and watch something and criticize somebody or their job when they're not in the midst of it, because there's so many things that come into play in real time that you can't experience by, sitting on your couch. The noises, the smells, the emotion of other people, that's all that stuff is very real. And that your whole reaction and action is based off of the environment around you. And to try and get somebody to fully understand the scope of our job is impossible.
So with that, what can be done apart from just saying, trust us, to inform the general public? I feel like there's a duty to try, especially you coming from a first responder world myself as a firefighter. Like, it's so hard to convey that message and say like, well, I know you think that it's like this, but it's actually like this other thing. What is your duty, or do you feel a duty to try to, I struggled with the word evangelize, but like to spread that message for the sake of law enforcement in general? Maybe that's too big of a duty. I don't know, but I feel like there's something there. you know?
I mean, you really can't immerse the public or make them understand what the job's about unless they go to school and they sign up for it and actually do the job. I know a lot of agencies have citizen academies where they run them through scenarios, and so they'll get a taste of it. So I encourage anybody to get involved with their local police department or sheriff's office, see if they have a citizens academy they can run through. It's usually a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, or sign up to be a reserve with your local agency's volunteer time, but you get to put on the uniform. You don't get to wear a gun or anything like that, but they put you through a lot of training and you work a lot of events and you're out in the public. And our reserves are definitely a huge part of our office and help out tremendously. I know we really appreciate their help on a lot of things.
So, to get to kind of the meat of this story here, you know, so if we go to, I want to talk to Sturgis, right? So
Okay.
you're what, 17 years on the job at that point, 18 years on, something like that?
18. Yeah.
So
yeah.
up until that point, have you been involved in any gunfighting, drawn your weapon? What's like your experience up to that point?
I've never discharged my firearm on duty, other than to put a deer down or like an animal that's suffering. But like, there's a lot of times where you're drawing on people, like if they're burglary suspects or like armed robbery, anything that justified using your weapon to be safe.
Yeah.
There's certain criteria that needs to be met before you pull your gun out and point it at somebody. I won't go down that because that'd be a whole nother podcast probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've drawn my weapon on people before. I've been at a shooting where it wasn't justified for me. I wasn't in a position to shoot my firearm, but yeah, I've been around some bullets flying.
Yeah. And so now you find yourself on vacation in South Dakota, right? Biker rally, right? Sturgis, South Dakota, right? You're taking part in the rally, right? You're on your bike.
Yeah, we were there on a family vacation, I guess you could say. My wife, my dad, my sister-in-law were with me, along with some friends.
And so then walk me through what happens to really turn your life on its head for a little bit.
Well, we rode out there. My wife and another guy's wife took our truck, but we rode through rain the whole way. The first we left on a Sunday, so Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Even when we got to the rally, it was raining, it was hail, the weather was bad. The morning of the shooting, or I should say the day before, one of my friends, he's a barber, his name's Red, from Red's Chop Shop in Apple Valley. We were going to do the Devil's Tower run, and he wanted to know when and where we wanted to meet. And I just said, hey, we're pretty beat down from all the rain. If we could just sleep in and, let's say 10 o'clock. And he goes, all right, we'll meet at the Sinclair off of I-90 and Junction Avenue. And I was like, all right. And the next day, the forecast was going to be 75 and sunny. So the morning of, I was getting ready. I have an off-duty weapon. It's my old service weapon, a 40 caliber Glock. I was about to put it on my through my belt loop, and I just put it back in the drawer because I was like, it's a nice day. It's bulky. I'm a huge advocate for conceal and carry. I just personally was not a big carry guy, and so. And that gun is huge, and it pinched in my my chap, so it was really uncomfortable, and I just want to have a comfortable day. So I left it behind. We get up, we ride to the gas station, we top off our gas tanks, and I'm waiting for Red to show up. And I'm looking along Junction Avenue because he's coming from the Buffalo Chip. And all of a sudden I see the state trooper looked like what he had his gun out, had this guy at gunpoint in the ditch. And at this point, I'm just like spectator, nothing alarming, but I'm looking around and I don't see a vehicle anywhere, like like it's a traffic stop or anything. So I don't know what's going on. And we're probably about 40 yards from where this is happening. We're standing in the gas station parking lot, and the troopers in the center of the road. The suspect was down a ditch, and it was probably like a 3 or 4 foot decline into the ditch. And I seen the guy's hands, go up, and he turned like he was going to walk away. And then he turned back around, pulled the front of his shirt up, pulled a pistol out, and started shooting at the trooper. Once I saw that, I turned around to my group, thinking like my dad, my buddy Mike, who was an Army vet, and then my buddy Jim, who was the Marine Corps Force Recon guy. One of them would have had their guns. I just spun around and said, "Somebody give me your gun." And everybody just kind of stared at me. Because it was a pretty shocking moment. And my buddy Jim was actually inside the gas station going to the bathroom and grabbing some snacks for the ride. So he wasn't even out there. Nobody presented me their gun. So I turned around and the trooper was laying in the middle of the road. And I knew that he had a gun. And so I started to run towards him. And I just heard a bunch of people yelling at me, and I could hear my dad just, growing up. Not that I got yelled at a lot, but his voice really stuck out amongst everybody else's. And I turned around, and my sister-in-law walked up to me with her pistol and handed it to me. And I turned back around, and she screamed at me, and I turned to face her again. And she's like, she's making the motion of you have to put one in the chamber, like a racking, And because there's a lot of bikes around, it was loud. And so when I went to turn back towards the street, I saw some people off to my left, and I just told them, "Hey, I'm an off-duty cop. It's okay." And they acknowledged that. And when I went to run back to the road, that trooper wasn't in the road anymore. And I saw the shooter run up and get into the driver's side of the squad car in the driver's seat. And right then and there, I knew this thing just went from bad to worse, knowing that if he knows the right things to do, he could have access to some weapons. Or that vehicle had been used as a weapon to just plow through all the bikers that were lined up on the street. That's particular gas station, and it was pretty popular for people to gas up there because there's so many different routes to go from there. So from there, I located them. I located the trooper back behind a large junction box, one of those green junction boxes, and I redirected my path. And as I'm running up to him, I'm just screaming at the top of my lungs because I know there's a lot of ways I could have died because I wasn't dressed in a uniform, as in chaps and a vest and a flannel and blue jeans and cowboy boots. But I was yelling that I was an off-duty cop. I had my gun at the low ready, and I'm a lefty, so I had my right hand up in the air, gun at the low ready, yelling. And I figured he heard me because then he turned back around and faced the squad. And I got to the right side of him, went to address the bad guy in the car, and because he was shooting out the driver's side window. and I pulled the trigger and nothing happened. It's like my worst nightmare. I have dreams about that where, you know, the gun doesn't work. But normally I do like a malfunction check. For whatever reason, I didn't do that. I got back behind the junction box, looked at the gun, and it's got a safety on it. And I don't, my duty weapon doesn't, or Glocks don't have safeties on them, like switch safety. So I hit the safety, rolled back out on the right side of that junction box, and put rounds into the vehicle, and the slide locked back. And there was no worse feeling than that. Like, I physically felt ill, and I audibly said, "Please, Lord, protect us." And I dipped back behind that junction box and just kind of sat and leaned up against it. And I asked the trooper what he was shooting, hope maybe I could get some bullets, or, you know, to reload, or, but as soon as I asked that, he said he threw the gun out. He threw the gun out. And I said, "Thank you, Jesus." And I just stood up and I looked over the junction box. I saw the gun was laying on the ground, and the trooper went out from behind the junction box to make contact with this guy. But then he come running back, and he's yelling that the door was opening. And I was like, you know, great. Oh, you know, luckily, the suspect was hit several times, and he was somewhat immobile at that point. And so the trooper then got back out from behind the junction box, and I peeked around the corner and saw that this guy more than likely was no longer a threat. So I ran up behind the trooper and just told him, "Hey, I'm still with you." And as we approached him, I'm yelling, you know, "Let me see your left hand," because he's kind of in the recovery position, like on his right side, but his back was towards us, so you couldn't see his left hand. And once we got close enough, that whole left side of his body was pretty peppered, bleeding significantly. And there's blood pooling up, and I didn't know if he'd expired at that time or what it was. But though my last command of "we need to see your left hand," he just yelled, "I can't." And, you know, just looking at the damage or the injuries he sustained was a pretty good, a fair assessment that he couldn't use that arm. The trooper, or I told the trooper, we need, you know, a chest compress and a couple tourniquets. He called his backup in, and he came back with like it was a small kit type thing, but it looked like a shot kit, I guess you could say. And there was a chest compress in there and a tourniquet. So that trooper ripped open the chest compress, and I just put it on a part of this guy's body. You couldn't tell where he was hit exactly, but he had a lot of blood, like in his shoulder area. So I just put pressure on that, and then he put the tourniquet on, and tightened it down, and we got some responses out of the suspect once that tourniquet was applied appropriately. He got it on there pretty tight. The cavalry showed up. My timeline is not great, but it wasn't long. But when another trooper showed up, I told him, "Hey, we need this other tourniquet put on his leg, high in his close to his groin, and put that down," because I thought I don't know if he had a femoral hit or what, because the one up on his shoulder, I told the trooper to get high in his brachial and cut that artery off. And these were just all basically insurance, you know, applications, I guess you could say, is just a guess, and just do what you can. I just figured the higher you get on both of those, the better you're going to get and stopping the blood.
For sure.
And so, yeah.
So I have so many questions.
Yeah.
So I don't even know where to start. So this goes down. What are your initial thoughts? Obviously you take action right away, but you have to have had some other thoughts in terms of your emotion. Should I intervene? Should I not intervene? What are the implications? Like, what was going through your mind as you're taking early action here?
Well, there wasn't much hesitation once that gun came out and the bullets started going. I knew I had to get in there and help out. I'd want somebody to do the same thing if I was in that situation, and I knew somebody had some sort of training that was in the area. I was very at peace at what I was about to do. I'm a man of faith, and I felt there was a godly protection over me, and a peace about what I was about to do. I knew either way, I was either going to go home to with my earthly father who was standing there watching this thing go down, or heavenly father, and I was fine with it.
Yeah.
The fear of it and everything, that none of that really sets in until after the fact. I mean, it's obviously there's a level of fear when you see it. But it doesn't really come to the surface, and it didn't come to the surface for me until afterwards. I never thought about the liability or the legalities behind it. I was just running off of my faith and doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm. So that brings me to kind of my next thought. And, people that work in law enforcement, military, fire, any of these things, we always leave our homes, leave our families, and go and do the things that we do, and then come home. And sometimes they hear the stories, sometimes they don't. But you were put in this very unique situation to go do what you do on a stage in front of all the people, or a lot of people that you love and that you care about and that care about you. In talking with them after this, what was their experience while this was going on? I have to imagine it must have been a terrifying ordeal for them to just watch you run into the abyss to go do what you're trained to do, that they're not necessarily equipped to watch right away. I mean, I could imagine there's some very interesting emotions that are foreign in that.
Yeah. So when obviously there's a process that happens with the local authorities, Meade County Sheriff's Office, South Dakota State Patrol, and the DCI is I have their hand in this, of course. So originally, before I even got brought back, because I had to have blood taken and urine, but I wanted to go give my motorcycle key to my dad because I did not know how long I was going to be. Mm-hmm. When I walked back, my dad was the first one to approach me, and he goes, "I hope you realize how many lives you just saved." And I got into the what ifs, and my dad stopped me and he goes, "What if you didn't do anything? Mm-hmm. Could you live with that?" And I was like, "Probably not." Mm-hmm. I mean, my dad knows me better than anybody. But my dad, he has had a couple heart attacks over the years. He's very healthy now. But he said that he felt like he was going to throw up and pass out watching that. He said he felt a lot more comfortable once I'd gotten my sister-in-law's pistol. Mm-hmm. He's like, at least he's going in there with some hardware. And because he didn't know what I was doing when I was running towards the trooper with no weapon. He didn't know my thought process.
Yeah.
My wife, the adrenaline hit her, and her legs were uncontrollably shaking. I personally had a bunch of waves of nausea and all that. I felt like I was going to throw up myself. But I think the consistent, I don't know if you want, it's not a question, but people brought up, you did this with no body armor, no radio, no nothing. And there's only 7 bullets in that gun. And I just put myself in the throes of it all, with no concern, or none of that was even a thought process, because you don't just turn off your mindset, or I don't know how else to say it. Like when you're on vacation, I'm still always on alert. I'm always knowing I need to know what my exit is, and I've been like that for a majority of my career. And I think there's a lot of other people in law enforcement that will tell you the same thing.
Yeah, hypervigilance, they would call it in the therapy world.
Yeah.
Which I'm well familiar with. So, and then my next question is purely logistical. In my brain, as you're telling this story, I go like, all right, so then, treated, suspect transported, and you're like, all right, guys, where's dinner? What are we getting? You know what I mean? How do we get back into the day after that? What does that look like?
Well, so, obviously I had to contact my union. I had attorneys involved, and I gave my blood, my urine. I wasn't afraid of what was in there. After that was all said and done, I mean, I bet you it was probably about 5 hours or so after that all started that I was released. And I got on my bike, and I asked my dad, I'm like, my wife's name's Kendra. I'm like, can you give Kendra a ride back? Cause I don't know if I'm gonna have to pull over and throw up or what. Cause I was still getting that nausea. But we just went back to the VRBO. It was me, my dad, Kendra, and then her sister, Holly. And Holly's the one that provided the pistol. I told my other friends, I'm like, hey, I don't want to wreck. You guys just keep doing your ride or whatever. I just like to be with my family right now and start processing this whole thing without any distraction. And the funny thing was, on the way back, and I have a Bluetooth in my helmet, and I'm listening to Crystal Appleton radio, and his the national anthem that he sung at the Super Bowl started playing, and so the wave of emotion came over me, and I'm like, this is how I'm gonna go. I can't see right now, I'm welling up, and and so anyway, we get back to our VRBO, and I had to call the owners of it and just said, hey, this happened. And it was a little while after the fact, but I think it was later that evening when I called and I spoke to the wife, and she's a nurse in town in Sturgis. And when I told her what happened, I said, I don't know if they're going to serve warrants here or what, and she's like, oh, you're the one. And I'm like, yeah. And so there was that weird connection that I don't know if she was in on any of the procedures with him or doing the emergency care once he got in there. But yeah, she was working when he came in. But yeah, we just started making sandwiches, and like we were hungry.
Huh?
Yeah, my dad
pack of beer. What the heck?
Yeah. They're like, don't drink or smoke or caffeine or nicotine after any kind of dramatic event. But later that night, we had some good fellowship with some Busch Light and some Tennessee Honey whiskey. And,
Yeah.
my family finds humor in chaos or some tragedy. And man, it was good for the soul to really laugh and just be around, people that are close to you.
Yeah. So how quickly after this did it sink in that what had occurred was pretty extraordinary? Was that a thing that you were aware of it pretty readily, or did it take a little bit for it to really sink in?
It took a while. I'd say probably, probably the February of 2024 when we had our awards banquet, an internal awards banquet. My patrol commander, he presented the award to me, and he read the write-up for the Medal of Valor within our office, and when he read it, that was the first time I ever heard the story being told to me. And so when I was sitting there listening to it, I could actually listen to it as an outsider, and I was like, holy crap, that's unbelievable that somebody would do that, and that someone, you know what I mean? And
happened to be you.
And there's a time that you sit in this like euphoric state where you can't believe you're alive, and all of that stuff happened. I got out of that, but it's still crazy to me.
So what has the emotional journey been like coming down now, having it been we're probably approaching 2 years since, something like that?
Yeah, just over 2 years now. Yeah.
Yeah. So what has that, roller coaster been like since?
I would say like exactly a week after the incident even happened, I was at home, and I really got into kind of a spin about the whole deal. And because I was really like hyper focused on how I made my wife feel and my dad feel in that moment. And I can only explain it to, I'm a very selfless person, and my selflessness became a selfishness to help others in need and not think about the well-being of my wife or my dad. And at the moment, we weren't anywhere near, like, their lives weren't in immediate danger, I could say, when the bullets were flying. So the priority was that trooper at the time. But I started getting into this state of like almost like a panic attack type thing. And I ended up going out on my deck, and I started working out, and that's usually, a good remedy for it. But that night it was not. And I ended up calling one of my lieutenants, who was a partner of mine at one point, and speaking with him, and he got me out of that spin of panic and anxiousness, and I'm forever grateful for him. But
so then, as you keep working through this, the awards keep coming in, and and like, obviously we met kind of on that circuit in some way, shape, or form, but how was that for you? I people know now that was a really challenging time for me. But like, how were you handling all the quote unquote fanfare that came from you doing something that you just felt like was an expectation or something that you felt compelled to do, and all of a sudden now you're standing in front of thousands of people waving and accepting this accolade?
Yeah, So a lot of the conversations I had, when people ask me like, why'd you do it? And this and that, I'm like, well, wouldn't anybody do that? Wouldn't any cop do that? And a lot of the answers were, no, I don't think I would ever do that. Or I would hope I would, but I don't know. Like, there's a lot of that. And so hearing that, it became more of a reality of, there'd be a lower percentage of cops that would have done it. And I'm getting this feedback from other cops. It's nothing that I'm just pulling out of right field. So a lot of those conversations were that, and getting the awards. It was fun. We went to a few. It was a recognition or award ceremony, but the best part about all of that was just seeing like the light in cops' eyes, because for a while, cops were afraid to do their jobs because they're afraid they're going to go to prison for it. So, South Dakota and Minnesota are different in a lot of ways on how things are handled with this type of incident. And I learned very quickly that I had nothing to worry about for sure. From my attorneys shortly, like days after, once they got all the information. But the any award that I would get, the story would be told. And there's different people that wrote stuff up, so it was interesting to hear it through different lenses. But my heart would pound when they'd read it, and I'm not big into being in front of crowds, and that was part of it too. But it was fun. More importantly, I was just hoping that the story would just reach other people, to not necessarily motivate them to do something off duty, but to be like, hey, we can still do our jobs, and and leadership mattered too. My administration had my back like right away, and they had the facts from somebody, because I couldn't talk to anybody about it, because I gave my statement on it 2 days after the fact. But law enforcement's a small world, and some phone calls were made, and my sheriff was real confident in my abilities and trusted that I made the right judgment. So that emotional stress was lifted very quickly. So I didn't have to worry about that. So.
Yeah. So as we kind of look to wrap up here, I'm interested in like putting the whole thing in retrospect, not only your story at Sturgis, but kind of your career thus far. And like, how has your time in law enforcement shaped your worldview differently than what you think someone else's worldview would be?
I've made it very simple that there's good and there's evil, and evil comes in all sizes, shapes, colors. No matter, evil is evil, good is good, and I learned that very early on. Well, even before my law enforcement career, I worked at the Mall of America as a security officer. And so I really got to see kind of a melting pot of like just so much diversity, and knowing that it's not one certain person or culture. People are rotten, and it just, I don't know. I just think that there needs to be more good people out there to do the job. So.
Yeah. So with that, I'm interested in that answer. I think there's a lot to pick apart in there. But so your view of the world in this kind of black and white, there's good and there's bad, and it's indiscriminate in who decides to fall on both sides of that coin. It would seem like that would be kind of your view. How do we navigate a world? Man, this is a tricky question to even phrase. How do we navigate a world where there's so much uncertainty and try to be good in it despite that uncertainty? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I try to just the view of life that I've taken, especially as of late, is this idea that like I'm going to be good to the world, and if the world hurts me because of that, I'm okay with that. How does that ring to you with your worldview?
Well, I think it's like in law enforcement, I think it's very important for us to humanize the badge and let people know that we're humans too. We make mistakes, and but by doing that, it makes us approachable, and we're husbands, fathers, and I think if you can make that connection with people that maybe don't typically view you as an ally, because I've built a lot of rapport with people as I'm bringing them to jail after we just got in a fist fight and all that. We find a common ground on motorcycles, or maybe we wrestle or whatever. I just think just approaching things with an open mind and just leaving people with their dignity, no matter if you're in a uniform or you just walk in the street, because at the end of the day, I learned this from a guy that came and spoke at our office, is that even these people that are just down on their luck, or maybe they made poor decisions and stuff like that, the only thing they're left with is their dignity. And once you strip that from somebody, that's when you have problems, and that's when you have chaos, and that's where you have a divided world, like an immediate divide. So I don't know if I totally answered your question with that, but
I think that's great. I think that's a great way to end this thing off, which is this idea of humanizing the badge, but also in a weird way humanizing the other side of the table too, which is that these people that are doing things to subvert society also are humans too, and the more we can serve to humanize them, the more we can hopefully draw them back into society instead of pushing them further away.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Tanner. I appreciate it, man. It's great to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. I appreciate you.
Of course.